Hi everybody, I'm Michael Davis. Welcome to Bone2Pick, and we are coming to you today from sunny Los Angeles, California. I could not be more excited to be interviewing our featured artist this month, the virtuosic, inimitable, the great Chuck Finley. For my money, one of the top 10 best brass players of all time. He does everything at the highest level and totally inspiring. I almost think it would be easier to list the artists he hasn't played with than the ones he has. He's done everything from that super famous Carpenter's Close to You flugelhorn solo. He's played with George Harrison on the Concert for Bangladesh. He was on the Tonight Show band for years and years and years. He's recorded with Frank Sinatra, Steely Dan, Toto, Joni Mitchell, the Rolling Stones, Al Jarreau, Elton John, Tina Turner, Miles Davis. That's just to name a few. I'm super honored that he played on a couple of my CDs, the Brass Nation CD, and played an amazing solo on the Trumpets 11 CD. It's just an honor to be able to sit down and talk to him today about his extraordinary life and amazing career. Chuck, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Mike.
This is awesome. Really,
it's an honor being here.
Thank you.
Seriously.
It's our honor, absolutely. Maybe we can just start right off by talking about, you grew up outside of Cleveland, then going to the Cleveland Institute of Music, and then that leading to your first professional job with Jimmy Dorsey. Maybe we can start off with that.
Okay. Well, let me go back just a little bit further than that so I could at least explain to you how that even came about. I was born in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, in a little mill town, in the famous flood. My dad was a saxophone player and also played violin. That was kind of like a common double back then because they'd stroll. They'd do these supper clubs and these, wherever they did the concerts. And after they'd take the breaks, they would go and stroll and play violin, around the tables. Anyhow, so I grew up in a musical family there. My brother is 8 years older than me, started on cornet, and so I got through that, through my father and my brother. There was constantly music all the time. There were jam sessions in the house all the time. So I thought it was just natural and common that every household was like that. Later to find out that that's not the case. But so for me, it was just second nature that to pull out a horn and play. So that's how I learned to play, because the background was music all the time. We moved from Johnstown to Cleveland because my dad, that was the big move in the big city. It was 200 miles away, and my dad worked in the mill in Johnstown, and when we went to Cleveland, he worked at the Kink factory as a repairman there. Oh. So that was a nice gig for my dad, and then because for the family, a good move as well. So I was raised in Maple Heights, which was a suburb of Cleveland. In Cleveland was a swinging town. It was actually it was kind of happening when I was there, when I was growing up as well. Rick Kiefer, I don't know if you know the name Rick Kiefer, the trumpet player, played with Maynard's band. And the Three Foxes. That was Maynard and Rick. And anyhow, Rick had a pickup band there, Maynard's Book. So in Cleveland, grew up, Jiggs Wiggum was the lead trombone player in that band. He's about 4 or 5 years older than me. Mm-hmm. My brother was playing lead in the band. And Bob Lanise was another trumpet player in that band in Cleveland. Gary Barone and Mike Barone, they were from Cleveland as well. A lot of musicians came out of Cleveland. So I was 14 years old, and I'd go in there and I'd sit in with the band at the Union. And it was just wonderful. I mean, what a great experience for me at that age. So, I mean, like I mentioned before, it was a constant, that was my life. Not that and playing baseball and ice skating, that was my life, and swimming. But so I studied as well. Trust me, I did. I had to graduate. You had to study, but I always relied back on my music. Kind of seemed to get me through everything. And band at school as well. So anyhow, that was my life in Cleveland. I played in a supper club called Paderewski's in Cleveland. And they were descendants from Ignaz Paderewski from Poland, the great composer. And their family had this supper club, and they did a little show, and they had a rhythm section. The son played piano, Jan Paderewski, and my brother was on that gig for a while. They went through trumpet players. They didn't have sax, which was really beautiful because normally all supper clubs had saxophone players and no trumpet, but this place had a trumpet. So it was my brother, Gary Barone, did it, and then after Gary, then I followed, and I came in. And so that was 5 nights a week, and it was absolutely wonderful. So I at the age of 16, my brother was on the Glenn Miller Band, Ray McKinley. So my brother was 22, No, actually, it was on before that, but somewhere around that, 21, 22. So when that band would come through Cleveland, as once again, and their coach, my father and my mom and I would go out to the venue, and I'd sit in. And I was, 15 years old, 16 or something like that. And so I was playing, and then at the supper club, I could drive at 16, so I'd be working 5 nights at Paderewski's. And whenever jingles or commercials were happening in Cleveland at the time, I'd also do that. So it was really, I couldn't, I knew right then and there that's what I wanted to do for a living. When I saw my brother buy a new Triumph TR3, I said, wow, geez, this plays a trumpet. And he can buy a new car. This is unheard of, I guess. So I said, well, this is what I want to do. So anyhow, I graduated. I auditioned for a scholarship in Cleveland Student Music, and I got a full scholarship. I had a full ride. So I went on. I didn't even have to take my final exams in high school. I showed the dean. I had the opportunity to go on the road for the summer in 1965 when I graduated. I was 17. And the dean of the school's son played trumpet in the band too. So I went to the dean and I showed him the itinerary for the summer that I could go on the road. And he was completely knocked out. He said he looked at my grades. He said, "You don't have to take your exams. I'll give you an F on every final exam, and you'll still pass. You'll still pass. And since you have a full scholarship anyhow, it doesn't really matter what your grade point average is because you already have it." So that's what happened. I went on the road. And prior to that, though, the Christmas of '64, my dad died of a heart attack, and it was right 2 days after Christmas. So now, I go on the road. I have this full scholarship. I wanted to study with Bernie Adelstein, who was the principal of Cleveland, and that was the real reason I wanted to go there. Because I had studied prior to that with a gentleman named Harry Herforth, not Herseth, but Herforth. He marvelous drummer player as well. So I did study classical, and which any young trumpet players out there, and musicians, it's very important to study classical. I mean, I could tell if somebody studied over the phone. I could tell you if they had studied or not, or if they've been self-taught. It's very important to have that basic foundation. So that's what I wanted. I went there to study with Bernie, and he was fantastic. Now, the beautiful thing is that we would do commercials together in Cleveland. And Bernie would play third trumpet, and I'd play lead. And here's my teacher, he was playing third. We had a great bond, a great relationship. So I was the only, all his students at the Cleveland Student of Music were postgraduate students, except me. I was a freshman. So Bernie said to me, when I went in and walked into his office, when I got off the road, he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm here to study with you." He said, "No, you're not." I said, "Yes, I am. I'm here to study with you. That's why I'm here." He says, No, you go back on the road. I said, "I don't want to. I want to study with you. This is very important to me." He says, "No, you need to go back on the road." So I kept bugging him. He said, "Okay, you got it. But only if you come to my house and take the lessons with me at my house, not at the school." I said, "Okay." So my lessons were, I'd drive to his house and take lessons in his basement. And it was just great. Just fantastic. We'd spend all afternoon together. It was just marvelous. But now I was working 5 nights a week at this Paderewski's, and since my dad passed away, I needed to work. And there were 3 rehearsals I couldn't make at the school, at the Cleveland Student of Music. Now, mind you, it was a very classically oriented school, totally. There wasn't a jazz musician there except me. I would be practicing in the practice room, and I'd be playing bebop, and the dean would open the door, and he'd say, "Bach." And I'd just look at him, he'd give me that evil look, and he'd just shut the door on me, And I'd continue. I mean, of course, I played repertoire as well, but I was going to be a jazz player, so I was just playing. I had a notice on the bulletin board that said, "Chuck Finley, see the dean, see the dean, see the dean." I kept ignoring it. And finally, I said, "I better go see him." So I went and I sat down in the dean's office. And he said, "Charles," he said, it says here, "I found out that you can't make 3 rehearsals with the orchestra." Now, I knew the repertoire inside and out. I didn't need to make these 3 rehearsals, and I had to work. And I told him, I said, "I'm sorry, I can't make it. I have to work." And he said, "Well, if you don't make those rehearsals, you're going to lose your scholarship." So, I mean, that was a beautiful introduction to, like, classical school. And I said, "Well, I have to tell you," I said, "you can take the scholarship and shove it where the sun doesn't shine. I didn't use those words, but I did tell him to shove it. And I went back on the road. Once again, there was an opening. I went back on the Jimmy Dorsey band. Now I'm on the road. This is 65, beginning of, it was actually after 66, beginning of 66. So I'm on the road, and I did a short stint with that band, and then I left the road, and I was back in Cleveland again. So I'm in Cleveland. I'm playing with an R&B band, and Woody Herman's band came through, and we were the opening act for the Woody's band. Well, on the band was Bobby Shue, Bill Chase, and Sal Nestico. That was that band.
Right. Sure.
So now I met Bobby because I knew Bobby because he was on the Glenn Miller band. I'm in the Tommy Dorsey band with Sam Donahue. So I knew Bobby through my brother once again there, and so they always called me the Kid. So Shue and Sal stayed, and when they took their break, and they stayed because he wanted Sal to hear me. He said, "Sal, you got to listen to this kid play." So we were rehearsing, and Hammond B3, real nice, and nice little band. And so we got to hang a little bit there. And also the interesting thing is that I knew Bobby already, and I just wanted to hang with Bobby. And Bill Chase couldn't understand why I didn't want to hang with him, because Bill was the kind of guy that, he was a ladies' man and he portrayed himself that way. And before every gig, everybody's playing and warming up and doing their thing and having a taste of whatever they're doing. Bill Chase was in front of the mirror, but there wasn't one hair out of place. That was his thing. Marvelous treble player. Bill played his ass off, just fantastic. But he was more concerned about picking up some chick than he was, practicing and getting ready for the warming up for the show. So anyhow, I was hanging with Bobby, and next thing you know, I get a call from New York from Bobby. Was it Bobby? It was Bobby, yeah. Bobby asked me to come into New York. They were playing Basin Street East. Wanted to know if I wanted to audition for Buddy's band. I said, absolutely. So I jumped on a plane, flew to New York, went there, auditioned, played the first set. And then the manager of Buddy's band said, I think it was his brother. I'm not quite sure. I think it was back then. And he told me, he says, Chuck, he says, Buddy wants to see you in his dressing room. So I go in the dressing room, Buddy's sitting there in a smoking jacket. And he's sitting there and he looks at me, he says, Kid, you got the gig. I said, fantastic, Buddy, wonderful, I love it. He said, but when you play your solos, I want you to play like Sweet Citizen. Now, I'm like 18 years old. I said, Buddy, I said, I'll tell you what, I would love to do the gig. I said, but, I said, if you want Sweet Citizen, get Sweet Citizen. And Buddy just looked at me and said, Kid, you got the gig. and that goes back to the old school of give me a prick that can play.
Right, sure.
Because Tommy Dorsey was that way. That was the way it was. And that's why he had great bands all the time.
Absolutely.
I mean, you get some nice guy and they get along great but can't blow his nose. Sorry, it's not going to be as good as if you get somebody that they don't get along with, but he plays his ass off. That band's going to be a better band. And that's what Buddy had. So that was my how I got on the road.
So obviously getting on Buddy's band seems like that brought you to national prominence. I think you guys did the big Swing Face record at that time, and it was you and Bobby. And what was, I know from being on Buddy's band, he loved anybody, of course, at your level he would love, but then somebody who's got a backbone and is going to stick up to him, he really responded to that. So that's amazing that you had that at such an early age. That band seemed at that time to be one of a really special band of his. Like it seemed like in terms of the spotlight in jazz and big band stuff, like that band was a cutting edge band with the pie strip charts and all the new stuff that he was doing at that point. What was that like, just getting on that band for you and being a part of that ensemble?
I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was just to join a band like that after playing like, I wouldn't say a mouse band, but Jimmy Dorsey band. I mean, it was a society band pretty much. I mean, it was great. The band was great. Don't get me wrong. But to join Buddy's band, it was like, wow. It was the beautiful thing. It was so fresh, because when Buddy formed that band, I mean, we had Woody's band, you had Duke's band, you had Basie's band, you had so many bands. Sizenda's band, there were a lot of great bands. But I mean, of course, we're talking about Duke and Basie, those bands, and Woody's band. Those three bands, pretty much. And Maynard, Maynard's band as well. But those bands, you looked at those bands like as being the cutting edge, like you say, bands of that era. And then when Buddy formed that band and he put that big band together, because he had small bands before that. And when he put that big band together and got all this fresh talent, and the arrangers, like you're talking about, Pie Strip and Bob Florence and Alan Ferguson and people like that, the charts that we played, it was marvelous. It was just so exciting. And then I was right next to Buddy, because my chair was right next to Buddy. And this ear is not very good, so I'm going to talk into that one, because he hurt that one pretty good.
Same thing for me. I was in the similar trombone.
Yeah, I had young ears, and boy, it was something. But he, anyhow, he was wonderful, man. He was absolutely electrifying, to sit next to him. And he just, he lit up the stage at all times. It didn't matter if he was feeling like shit or whatever. He just got everybody off their ass. He just lit us up, and we had no choice. And it was wonderful. Yeah. It was a lot of hard work, but I'll tell you what, it went fast, because it was like one tune after another. Bam, he just like nonstop fire. So you had to, and the good thing is, I looked at it this way, because I remember, I loved Duke's band, and I'd listen to Duke in Vegas when we were working, and they'd be at the Sands or something, and I'd go hear Duke's band. And they were nice, that they were just totally electrifying and just absolutely fantastic. Most of the time, they were very loose, and pitch was, and then you had Bass's band, which was a much cleaner version of that, and swung a lot more in a lot of ways, but they were both beautiful in their own way. And then you had Woody's band, which was even cleaner and more in tune. And then we had Buddy's band, which was the cleanest and the most in tune and most electrifying of all four. So it was beautiful. But back in those days in Vegas, every hotel had either Duke's band in one hotel, Bass's band in another hotel, Woody's band in another hotel, and Buddy's band in another hotel. I mean, it was just like, it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, so for me, at my early age, I was 19. I couldn't even believe it, what was happening to me,
That's so cool.